Hi again. Islamic extremism in Britain's prisons has got the government worried. Now it's published a report then on the extent of the problem and how to go about tackling it. To find out more, let's cross to our correspondent in London, Mrs. Chirkin. Hi there. So how does this report address the threat presented then apparently by extremism in prisons?
Well, Kevin, this report really takes a look at the scope of the problem, which, according to the findings of this review, are quite wide. Now, of course, this is part of the larger scrutiny of the issue of radicalization in the UK, and it seems that now officials here in Britain are going to implement certain practices in a different manner from what they've been implementing for the last decades. Now, traditionally, when it comes to the prison system here in the UK, our understanding is that when it came to more dangerous inmates, officials that ran prisons would try to have them be spread out throughout the prison system and then relocate them so they're not able to form sort of relationships inside those prisons to promote their idea. It seems that now there's going to be a shift toward actually what's being described as prisons within prisons, where the most dangerous inmates that are considered to be radicalizing the rest of the prison population would be grouped together. Now, this is one of the key recommendations that's actually come out of a government commissioned review, which it has to be said is classified, but parts of this report have been released by the Ministry of Justice. And some of the scope of the problem that they talk about includes, for example, charismatic prisoners acting as self-styled emirs, where they radicalize the wider Muslim population. Another element that this review talks about is aggressive encouragement of conversions to Islam. Also on the list, unsupervised collective worship, including pressuring actually prison officials, prison staff to leave prayer, and also literature promoting extremist views actually being available to the more radicalized population in the prisons. And it's also being said, quite curiously, that political correctness is quoted as being one of the reasons that some of the more radicalized ideas are being spread, because this report says prison staff are sort of fearful of being considered racist, so they're much more sensitive towards the Muslim population. Now, we at RT have actually talked to one former British inmate, and this is how he described this sort of recruitment process that's going on.
Relating themselves to ISIS. In June of 2014, when Mosul fell, you'd think that it was a goal scored in the World Cup final. These are people celebrating a terrorist group. The world has labelled ISIS to be a terrorist group, and it was being celebrated like that in prison. They have celebrity status in the prison. If you're a radical imam, you're a celebrity. If you're somebody that committed a terrorist offence, you're a celebrity. That way they can actively get into their recruitment, and they can actively brainwash people day in, day out.
Well, the number of those prisoners who are considered extremist here in the UK is actually a concern in itself, and even David Cameron just recently in February talked about this issue.
There is a new front that we need to open action on, and that is tackling extremism. We have around 1,000 prisoners who've been identified as extremist or vulnerable to extremism. And we know that through intimidation, violence, grooming, some of these individuals are preying on the weak, forcing conversions to Islam and spreading their warped view of the world.
Well, it seems that the scope of the problem is quite considerable, and of course the British officials here, we can see, have been concerned about this problem for quite some time. So now we're going to wait and see how exactly they implement this idea of sort of flocking the more potentially radicalizing inmates together. This is said to be a practice that's already going on in France, the Netherlands, and Spain, but some activists here in Britain have been talking about how is it going to be possible to adequately and accurately identify who is who and place people together appropriately. And also some have been raising flags about the danger of what they've described as creating a British Guantanamo.
Yeah, it's a tricky subject to tackle, isn't it? Thanks for the update now from London.